¿Qué pasa, campeones? ¡Campeones! And welcome to the Churros y Tácticas Podcast Champion Edition. On this beautiful Monday, the 16th of January, Mondays, Kiyan's favorite days. Welcome to Churros. Welcome to the Supercopa de España edition. It's the post Barça Real Madrid final 2023 falls in favor for El Blaugrana squad. We take it home, baby. The Supercopa de España, Kiyan, by defeating our biggest rivals, our arch enemy. Another page in the Clasico history has been written. We wanted attitude, we got it. We wanted good football, we got it. We wanted sheer and utter domination over our opponents. Hey, my G, we got it. And we wanted the trophy. We got that too. So happy days. Enjoy this win, culés. Soak it up. But by tomorrow, let's turn the page, focus on the Copa, and focus on the league as well. That's coming up already over the weekend. Welcome to Churros. Welcome, Kiyan. You've done 2 podcasts so far. I listened to one. That was your therapy session. I didn't listen to your second one. But this is your third. Hasn't been out. So this is your third, technically, podcast post Super Copa de España edition. You know, share with me your feelings, because on the first one it was depression. A state of depression had set amongst Madridistas. I'm also here to give you some therapy love.
Okay, so it's interesting because part of me, how do I word this without it being interpreted the wrong way by Madridistas? Part of me is optimistic and excited because I feel like what happened yesterday was so bad that we have no choice but to change things. So I'm kind of nervously awaiting that game against Villarreal on Thursday.
You guys got a big week.
Waiting for a change. I just expect to see a change because there's no way you can continue doing what you've been doing. Like you gotta change it. I'm hoping that's the reaction.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then
are we again
what's coming to us?
Now, last year we were in a very similar situation, very similar time of year. It was 4-0 in the Bernabeu. You were demanding the head of Ancelotti, as you also acknowledged and brought up in the podcast with Matt. I think it was. Mm-hmm. Was it Matt?
Yep.
What's the state? What's the what are you demanding Ancelotti's head once more? Is it now is his time up, and will you go on to win La Liga and the Champions League and then change your mind? What's the feeling right now?
I'm demanding Ancelotti makes a change. I'm demanding him to diagnose the problems and act accordingly is what I'm demanding. I can sit here, like, I'll bring up this example. Last year, we started, when Ancelotti first arrived at Real Madrid, he started to do a very aggressive high press that the team couldn't really figure out. It was actually entertaining in some ways because we were scoring a lot of goals from it. We were also conceding a lot. So we literally had games where we were winning 5-3. At some point, I think it was in December or so, Ancelotti realized, okay, we can't figure this pressing out. We're conceding a bunch of goals. We're going to just play defensive counter-attacking football. The first game he did that, he won 5-1 against Shakhtar Donetsk. And he continued winning that way up until a certain point. And now you need the scouting report's been out for a long time on Real Madrid. How do you stop Real Madrid? Well, you press them. They can't keep the ball. They can't get it in the opponent's half. And when they do, Vinicius has to beat 23 players. So that's how you stop Real Madrid. Easy. So what are you going to do to change that? There's nothing like, I'm not, when I say change, I'm not asking for Ancelotti to like play one player instead of another player. That's not a solution. I'm talking about like tactical change. And that's, but
isn't this, sorry to jump in here and sorry to, or I just want to ask you this question, because don't you feel it's a bit perhaps what's the word I'm looking for? Like advantageous or applying recency bias. Opportunistic, thank you. The fact that, this is the first title that Ancelotti lost, correct me if I'm wrong, since 2014 or 2010.
Well, that can't be true because...
No, not 2010.
Unless
I think it was 2000.
Final, because we've been eliminated. That would have to mean we've won every trophy we played, and that makes no sense.
Carlo Ancelotti, it came across my ear, a stat that caught my attention. I believe he didn't lose a final since 2014, around that era, around that time. My point being, really, and it's not so much about whether he won or lost this final, but rather this is something that you guys must have seen coming. We talked about often when analyzing and discussing Madrid that quite convincing the performances haven't necessarily been either. I guess my question is, has there been enough emphasis put on the areas of improvement that you're mentioning now in prior games after scraping by with a win? Or is it now again the final sort of the emotions of losing a final at the hands of Barca and getting battered again badly? I mean, let's be honest. It was another, even though Carlo didn't want to make to it, humiliation. Is the sense that I got from most Madridistas.
I think he's wrong on that, by the way.
But again, so yeah, if you could address that.
I don't think it's opportunistic because this is not a problem from one game. It's not like we were playing amazing football and then all of a sudden, we just played a bad game. That's not the case. This is a lingering issue. I brought up this example on the last podcast that we haven't published yet. It's simple math. Last season, we're conceding a lot of chances, and the reason we didn't concede more goals was because Courtois has been absolutely playing out of his mind. We're not generating much offensive chances. The reason why we were winning a lot of those games is because Vinicius and Benzema were overperforming their XG. And then as recently as the fall, Fede Valverde, every time he shot the ball, it would go in. None of that is sustainable. And so that math, it just catches up to you. You can't sustain that over a long, long time.
Yeah.
This is not a Clasico problem. I know, listen, I know I saw your comment on YouTube. I guess it wasn't enough for us to just be depressed for 45 minutes and talk about how bad Real Madrid is. You wanted to hear all the Xavi praise. It wasn't the place or time for that. But I know you want.
I know. I was having just a little fun.
Yeah, I know. I think Barcelona were amazing last night, but I also think Real Madrid have been poor for a long time.
But that's my point exactly. It's like I haven't heard or read so much, say, criticism or scrutiny towards Ancelotti leading up to this Clasico, when in actuality and as a matter of fact, not a lot has changed over this time. I mean, you could even argue that, the Champions League run has always, that style of play, and that's what we talked about as well, not sustainable. Like the falling behind and then having to pull the Juanito spirit out of the closet to then do an amazing remontada. That's not a sustainable model. And I asked you this question several times as well, is how comfortable are you in that skin? Often when we talk about, Barca DNA and style of play, and I talk about, I want to hone the ball because that way, you have a better chance of dominating your opposition because they don't spend any time on the ball, and that is just more pleasurable, but also a safer, it just brings more a sense of security when you see that your team is able to dominate the opponent from beginning to end and dismantle them. And so again, I agree with what you're saying. I just wonder if it's opportunistic now that you lost in the final against Barca to, I guess once again, sort of now raise your voices and be critical. Whereas I haven't heard that much criticism because Ancelotti's been picking up wins as well, playing this way.
I would call last season's run heroic and unforgettable, and one of the best years of my Madridista life. it doesn't mean that it's replicable. And I think that's part of the reason why it was heroic and unforgettable. And really, like, some of my best memories ever as a Madridista came in that Champions League run.
I bet.
But Ancelotti, I got to be careful saying this. So I think Ancelotti is an amazing coach. He really is. Truly, truly is. His resume speaks for itself. His philosophy always has been kind of this model of who am I to tell these superstars what to do?
Mm-hmm.
They must express themselves. So a lot of last season was we do our best not to concede, and we take advantage of the high lines in the Champions League and play the ball into space into Vinicius. The problem with that model in a lot of ways is that you're relying on these stars to be superhuman, which Vinicius and Benzema were last season. They were literally superhuman. So was Courtois. So my point is, now you have to take the reliance out of that. You have to put your players in a position to succeed. And I made this point to Lucas about an hour ago, is that Florentino has made all these claims in the media and he's right, that we can't compete with this money from all these teams. You're no longer going into these games with the de facto best player in the world. All these teams you go up against also have the best players in the world. So now you're relying on, like, okay, this is what the plan is. Let's just hope our stars are better than their stars. That's not sustainable. Now you're in a position, you're signing on these young players, whether it's Camavinga or Endrick, who's coming in 2 years. You got to put these guys in a position where there's structure and a foundation for them to succeed. I was really disappointed the fact that we not only yanked Camavinga at halftime, but also then the media just went at him as if it's his fault. It's not his fault. Like, that's not... I'm not saying he was amazing yesterday against Barcelona, but I am saying I actually liked some of the stuff he was doing, and he was trying to get the ball out of pressure. He was trying to move us up the field. And Modric, who was really poor last night. Kroos had a really poor game in that anchor position, which is not his best position either. These guys were still on the field, and I gotta wonder what Camavinga's feeling in a moment like that. You heard the podcast. You heard our disappointment, the lack of trust in the young players and the Castilla players that we would love to get incorporated if we're not going to sign anyone.
But Kiyan, let's be honest. That's always been the case with Madrid. La Fábrica is a great footballing school that produces great talent, but Real Madrid do not know how to use that talent. They are not known for really a team that promotes the younger talent to the first team. There's more of an odd case than it is a regular thing, like at Barca, to draw a comparison.
But let me
you know that better than me.
But let me point out the fact, Diego, that the two famous times we were forced to promote our youth team. One was the Yeye era.
Buitregueño, I understand.
And in those, like, the Yeye era was a part of that was because the rules changed and we were basically not allowed to sign any foreign players. We had to have basically our whole squad be Spanish. We were forced to promote them. That was an entire dynasty with those guys. Cuida de Buitre was a situation where the club had zero money to spend, and Di Stefano had no choice but he was the coach at the time, but to promote all these young players, and that was a dynasty. I'm not saying that this current group of Castilla players is Cuida de Buitre. Far from it. They're very, very good players, very promising players who are doing some great things at that youth level. I just want players to... You can't convince me that Vinicius Tobias, who's our right back in Castilla, would have looked worse than Carvajal last night. I also am begging for hunger and fight. Did you at any point in that game feel threatened by Real Madrid?
No.
Like, I'm not even talking about the tactical aspect. I'm talking about from the fight aspect.
No.
There was nothing. No response.
Nothing.
No response.
Yeah.
And so the point I was
the most comfortable Clasico that I can remember in a while, even though the 4-0 was last season. But yeah, very comfortable. True.
The point I make about Castilla players too is that they might not be the greatest players, although I think they are very good, but there's a hunger and love for the club that they have to fight, to get on the field and just do something, put an effort out. We were just walking around, man. We were walking around. It was embarrassing. It's bad.
Well, it was very enjoyable for the culés. I want to turn the Madridista page now, and let's start dedicating some time to my beloved Football Club Barcelona. This probably flew by. I don't expect you to, keep tabs on my Twitter, but there's a big reason why today's a day of celebration for me, because it's the first title in the Xavi era. Of course, we beat Real Madrid. We did so in emphatic fashion. We did so in the final. Hopefully this can serve to catapult our season into a positive direction, and we finish off winning the league and anything else there is to win. But another reason I'm celebrating today, Kiyan, is I am literally, this is historic, 2 likes away from hitting the 5,000 likes on my tweet, which has gotten 331 retweets. 5,000, bro.
Damn, son.
Literally, it's 4,400. Yeah, it's a shame. 4,000. I mean, 1 like away from the 5,000. This is by far my most successful tweet in the history of my fantastic Twitter career.
Gavi?
Where normally I might get, I would say on average, I'll probably get like 3-4 likes. I tweeted out yesterday, literally, I tweeted out yesterday after the first goal, the 1-0, where them Gavi haters at. When I saw the game that Gavi was having, it quickly became apparent that between him and Pedri, we were going to have a special night. I could feel, when I went on Barca Spaces just before, which was really great, by the way. I don't know if you do these spaces with other Madridista communities.
Those, because that gets you a lot of followers and Twitter engagement. I think you should continue to do those. Continue. Because a lot of people who don't follow you will see you in that thing.
Yeah. So that was really fun with all these big Barca accounts. And I was talking to these guys, or we were, one of the points I was bringing up was, look, I want 2 things. 1, I want us, of course, to win this trophy and beat Real Madrid. But 2, I want to do it showing attitude, showing more hunger, more character, not dropping the shoulders, not backing down, because these are the champions of Europe, the champions of Spain. And, they're big household names and they've won everything and they got their bellies full. And even if we go down 1-0, I want to see Gavi attitude and that be contagious throughout the team. And I singled him out because he is that dude, that guy that you can at least win or lose, count on giving 100%. And for these kind of games being, just instilling a fighting spirit. These kind of games end every game in the case of Gavi, but I really wanted to see it from the whole team. We did that. For me was a massively important sign to see that from these young guys as well. I mean, Gavi's fucking 18. He's a teenager. Pedri's only like a year and a half older. I'm not going to list them all, but this is the Baldes, the Ansus, even Ferran's very young squad in their late teens, early 20s that now, I don't want to have the excuse anymore that says they lack experience. Now's when these guys also have to start building that experience. And they do that through losses, which they have experienced, but now's the time to kind of start tasting a little bit of victory. And that's why it's really nice as well that we start with the least important cup, that in the rankings, of course, it ranks the least important, but that can serve as a way to sort of instill a winning mentality amongst these players, young and old, also the traumatized heavyweight dressing room heavyweights, but that the guys, let the Pedris see that their skills matches that or even outclasses that of the best out there. And that together they can, make magic happen. They can produce really, really, really good football. As Xavi said after the game, and he's reiterated this in multiple interviews, Pedri and Gavi were or are far better and far talented than Andres Iniesta and him ever were at the age of 18. And that's just a fact. And that's a scary fact, if anything. I tweeted out where them Gavi haters at. We talked about it on the podcast as well. It obviously was aimed at Madridistas. It's fine. I like that there is this guy that you guys just can't stand. And, I think that's good. I expect, continued memes to come out whenever you guys can take the mickey out of him, and then we can dish it back to you guys and, send out a tweet that has now become the most successful tweet in the history of my Twitter career. But even you, Kiyan, come on, at this point, the golden boy, there's no debate between Camavinga. Can I get you to admit that now?
No, I wouldn't.
Camavinga has not produced and has not been as impactful as Gavi has been, neither for club or national side. This is just, come on, Kiyan.
Oh, come on.
At this point, the scale is tipping. I'm
not taking anything away from Gavi.
Come on, bro.
Camavinga literally helped Real Madrid win a Champions League title, was the most important bench player in Europe last season. He had to play a World Cup.
You're talking a starter here.
He had, as a teenager, he played a World Cup final at left back and put in an amazing performance against Argentina. No, I don't agree with that. But I think Gavi was amazing, man. Like I'm not saying this to take anything away from Gavi. I think he was awesome last night. I think he's also one of those players you hate playing against and would love to have on the field for you. I think it was really good last night. It's an interesting comment that Xavi made about the talent thing. I don't know necessarily if talent is the right word, because Xavi and Iniesta are two of the most talented players in football history, at least midfielders. But they're certainly more "quote unquote" established than Xavi and Iniesta were at that age. That's not even up for debate. So, listen, man, Gavi's.
What did you make of?
No doubt.
But. Yeah, he was. What did you make of, because this was obviously a triumph for Gavi and he was MVP, but Xavi, has he impressed you? Has he convinced you more? This was a big victory for him, obviously, to instill not just some patience amongst the culés and the most critical ones that we've discussed here on this pod as well, but for actually his own players to buy into his project and his ideas, that were you convinced? I mean, I thought, the passing was just amazing from the back already. I thought Christensen, is another player that is surprising me how solid he is as a central defender, but also him being that first pass out of the defensive line, finding De Jong, cutting through Kroos, Modric, cutting through the Madrid midfield to then have a Balde come running on from Balde, it was sick. I cannot sing enough praises for these players and how they also just showed such a great understanding, man. This could have been a lot heavier than the 3-0 defeat. It could have easily been 4-0. And I'm particularly thinking of the moment where Balde just takes over Carvajal. I think you guys mentioned it with Matt as well. And then he puts that pass through beautifully across the defensive line to find. Oh, yeah, the pass was a beaut. Speak to me about that.
Well, I think from a tactical perspective, Xavi played it perfectly last night and everyone was good. And one of the things that I think gave us a lot of problems was that they didn't go with the two wingers like you and I spent some time talking about. Will Ansu start? Will Rafinha start? Neither of them started, and you got the same starting 11.
And you mentioned it. You were spot on because you mentioned it. You were spot on. You mentioned, what if Xavi repeats last year's semifinal lineup where Pedri plays on the left wing? Of course, he surprised it because it was Gavi on the left wing, but it was echoing in my mind when you mentioned that Pedri. Well, when I first saw the lineup, I was like, oh man, Pedri's playing on the left. But yeah.
Well, the thing about that is that the way Pedri and Gavi and even Frenkie, the way they move between the lines, it gave us all kinds of problems because it was fluid and unpredictable. But here's my frustration. And yes, Barca were awesome. I thought Real Madrid really made it easy for Barca. Really did. Like, I don't know what the hell Carvajal was doing on the second goal, for example. And there were moments where we were just letting these guys walk in behind us. And this is the thing.
Well, Frenkie just got to it sooner. Like, I mean, he pulled Carvajal out of that line,
but Carvajal
and then
didn't
he kind of like, slid tackle.
Like at all.
No,
like, there was no.
Well, I guess he was chasing the ball.
Yeah, he didn't need to. He just needed to track the run because the Militao was already there and he wasn't going to get there in time. And Carvajal was a disaster last time, but almost everyone was except for Courtois. This is where I'll preface what I'm about to say, Diego, by saying I think the season is very long and things can change again.
Of course.
You know, Real Madrid could go on a run. They could turn a corner. They could change something and play differently. And I guess I'm more curious to know what you think about this because you've experienced Barca winning the Clasico 4-0 and then bouncing out of the Europa League after that. You've experienced winning the Clasico in Vegas.
Which can happen.
And then getting knocked out of the Champions League after that. What's the response here? Yeah. So this is where my frustration comes in. And Real Madrid saw this Barca lineup because they did it against Atletico. Atletico, who didn't even know this was coming, after 20 minutes, they were like, oh, hold on a second. This is what's happening? All right. Changes. They Atletico,
reacted.
Of all team. Atletico, who, by the way, in the midst of all this, was absolutely brutal on the weekend, by the way, just drawing against Almeria. They figured it out. They didn't win, but the process was like, okay, they had an answer. Real Madrid, who knew that this was an option, had zero answer for any of this. So that was the source of frustration. And I guess my question to you is, I don't know if you, I'm sure you saw the Xavi quote of like, oh, if we can do this to Real Madrid, we can do this against everyone. Hold on. This is the Real Madrid that Casareño did this to. Casareño in the Copa del Rey, who are in Division 300 in Spain, did this to Real Madrid. Valladolid did this to Real Madrid. Villarreal did this to Real Madrid. So part of it, when I saw your comment on YouTube, I kind of chuckled, even though I know you were being half serious. Of, you know, why didn't we get a podcast of praising Xavi? Like, well, because I don't know how maybe Barca aren't the special snowflake, because every single team who plays against us think that this is the game where they turn the corner. Villarreal think this is the turning point. We beat Real Madrid. Valladolid, moral victory. We only lost 2-1 against Real Madrid. And I just like, dude, let's not. If you're a Barca, all I'm saying, if you're a Barca fan, you got to at least wonder, be like, okay, well, that Betis game and the Atletico game, that was 2 and 3 games ago. Can we sustain this against teams that are actually better than Real Madrid, who actually have a tactical philosophy? I'm really curious to see what happens against Ten Hag in Manchester United, by the way. Anyways, my point was
I'm very nervous for that.
I don't want to take anything away from Barca, who were amazing last night. That was not my point. But I guess if I'm a Barca fan, like, I've seen this movie before in some ways. I want to stop measuring myself against Real Madrid, and I want to start measuring myself against other teams. That's my point.
Well, I mean, look, right. And you're right to bring it up. And as you said, we have seen this movie before that ended very badly, very recently for Barca. In fact, after the 4-0 in the Clasico, it was pretty much downhill from there. And that's despite the fact that, you know, in the Europa League, we started that out with a bang with the 4-2 in overall, I think it was against Napoli, or 4-1 over 2 games. Anyway, there was a string of 4-0s again. I think it was 4-0 against Valencia, and then it was a 4-something against Villarreal, it might have been. Then 4, obviously, against Real Madrid. But yeah, at some point that mojo was gone, and we were all sort of left wondering, why is it that we saw great football being played to the point where even the players themselves were, you know, Piqué said, we're back, to then that just kind of dissipating and fading away. Let's hope that doesn't happen. I truly hope that this is a point of inflection for this team, to understand and kind of if you want to call it a magical switch, well, that would be the ideal scenario. But I expect we will continue to see games like Betis, like the Osasunas, or like the Españols, where it's going to be a hard fought, grinded out, match with a team sitting a lot more lower and making it defensively more difficult for Barca to find the open spaces and for the players to find each other for these kind of big and convincing and entertaining wins like we did last night against Real Madrid. Time will tell, Kiyan. We always said that the measuring stick and the bar, we can assess rather how the project is going or has gone at the end of the season. I think the same goes for players. Obviously you have standout moments and important moments and situations throughout the season that shape and mold how this team will progress and evolve and continue to play. And of course, also results in the end dictate the success of a team and the success of a season. It's I mean, what do you want me to say? I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess, is my
that's fair
conclusion. Is I'm cautiously optimistic. I knowing that Man United are hitting the best form that we've seen from them all season. There's no doubt about it. And Ten Hag is clearly having an effect now. And this post-Cristiano era is doing nothing but good to Man United, who now beat City over the weekend. Controversially, but, está plantando cara, right?
They played well.
They played well. And standing in the way of the big, great Pep. So we will see. I think it's still going to be a very entertaining game between these two sides. But yeah, we could crash out. I will say this, though. I mean, right now, in terms of priority, for me, it's the league. And after that, for me, would be the Europa League, Copa del Rey. And I think that's it, right? That's all that's up for grabs still.
That's fair. It looked great last night, man. There's nothing I'll take away from Barca. I thought they were incredible. They really were. I think it could have been worse than 3-0. I'm just really disappointed in what we did against. I'm just really disappointed in our entire performance. I'm disappointed with the players. I'm disappointed with the coach. I'm disappointed with the president in a lot of ways because, we keep complaining. We're tired, but we didn't sign anyone. So what are we complaining about? And if we're complaining we're tired, why aren't you just using the young players? If you really believe the players are this tired. I'm just disappointed, and I'm just tipping my hat to Barca, man. It was great. You guys were awesome. No questions about that.
So who should have come out? What would have been your starting 11 and what would have been your 11 at halftime when he took off your boy Kama?
Well, in hindsight, honestly, it is not a change in personnel is not going to change much here. Like, yeah, if you had a right back who is not a corpse, then maybe you don't get Balde sprinting past you, although Balde probably does anyway because he's so fast. But at least maybe you get someone fighting to not make sure that doesn't happen. So yeah, there are definitely changes in personnel that would have helped in some capacity. But what I think should have happened was you bring the game to Barca a little bit. Don't let them control the game the way they did. Would have been my solution. Because if you're going to concede this many chances anyway, this is not even defensive football. Defensive football means at least you don't concede this many chances. There was just defensive football without the defense part is a bad omen because you're not creating any chances. So I would have brought the line higher. I've said this so many times in the past that Ter Stegen, as good as he is on the ball, has given the ball away plenty of times when he's forced to make a pass and the team is being pressed. I would have brought the line higher up the pitch. I would have tried to make them more uncomfortable. So there are changes in personnel, sure, but I would have changed the playing style is what I would have really done because Vinicius was on.
So really, so you're what we're saying is that Xavi outclassed or outsmarted Ancelotti on the day.
Yeah, there's no.
You're pointing more the finger. Right. No, but exactly. But you're pointing more the finger at the coach as you are at the players.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. Yeah.
Because what am I going to do? Just get mad at a player? I'm not saying the players were good. Far from it. So I don't want anyone to twist my words and say that the players were not at fault at all. But I'm just saying that we have to put these players in a position to succeed. They weren't last night. Like, everyone got mad at Rudiger for his passing. Like, okay, so why is it the fact that no one can pass the ball here? Like, what? There's got to be something wrong. Why is it that when Rudiger plays for Chelsea,
it's pretty shocking.
Well, yeah, sure it was. But why is it that when Rudiger plays for Chelsea, he's one of the best ball progressing center backs on earth, and when you put him in Real Madrid, all of a sudden, like, we just have no idea what's happening. It was as if the ball was a big volcanic piece of ash. Like, we were just trying to kick it out of our feet immediately as soon as we get it, and then it was as if we were allergic to it. So we got to ask ourselves, why is it that regardless of who's on the field, these problems are occurring? You got to make a change in tactics. Do you think Xavi went into that game?
It was nice to have so much space. It just felt like we had so much space. So much comfort. Yeah.
And what happens when you have space and comfort? You also have confidence.
Yeah.
So while this is all happening and tactically there's a big gap, the Barcelona confidence has also been increasing, while Real Madrid's confidence is just decreasing. The morale is also widening. The gap of morale is widening at the same time. You got to put your players in a better situation. I'm sure you heard me say this, but I was disappointed with what Carlo said after the game too. Like, the players made mistakes. Well, yeah, they did, but what did you do to put them in better positions so they can avoid those mistakes?
So he pointed the finger at the players, huh?
He didn't.
I didn't hear you say that.
He didn't do it in a way where it's like it's the player's fault. But what he said was, he said that we were in the game until we started to give the ball away, which is a really bad diagnosis, if you ask me, of what happened last night. It's one of the things that happened, but it's not. This is not like all of a sudden, if we make less mistakes, we're still losing that game. You know.
What did you make of the couple Busquets and De Jong? They were playing a lot off of each other.
Yeah, I thought
it's not something that we see too much. Go on.
The ball progression was fantastic. I mean, I think Frenkie is, you know how much I actually am a fan of Frenkie, the way he plays. I was secretly hoping that you would sell him in the summer when that whole saga was going on, because I really believe in his ability to progress the ball. He gives us so many problems, not just this Clasico and other Clasicos too. The way he moves, the way he's really quick both on and off the ball. But he's just such a vertical player.
Yeah.
I was really,
I just want to see this more. I loved Frenkie yesterday, and I wonder why we don't see that more. Because sometimes there'll be games where you just don't even see him. Like his presence is just goes unnoticed.
I like him in this role better than any role, I think. Like this is the 4 central midfielder thing. Because I don't think he's the 6 like Busquets. So I like that this new wrinkle of having 4 central midfielders in there. Obviously, you have to sacrifice a winger for it, but Frenkie really excels in this role. And I don't know if this is a real thing, but I saw that report today that the Joaquin Correa and Memphis swap, which is stupid, I think,
is off.
Yeah, it seems off. But I saw a report that Xavi didn't want that to happen and wanted Brozovic instead, which I think would be a great signing for you guys, because Brozovic is a really, really impressive defensive midfielder. And if this is Busquets' last season, that's a good transition plan, in my opinion. So if you guys can get Brozovic, that's really, really good signing. Really good signing, I think.
I didn't hear about this.
Well, if you didn't hear about it, I don't know how real it is, because you're connected and I'm not.
I've been very busy today, so I really haven't checked the papers.
Because I don't think Frenkie should be the future 6. I think it should be someone else, but with Frenkie still in the team.
Well, I hope so. I mean, if it's this version of Frenkie, then for sure. It also kind of makes me think whether or not Xavi might convince Busquets to stay on for another season, which I know might sting the ears of a lot of Barca fans listening. But fact of the matter is, if we get this version of these two or these four midfielders like we got yesterday, we could be tapping into something, even if it does mean that Busquets, like we have another backup to Busquets, or even somebody that we give priority to, and Busquets comes off the bench, say 40% of the time or 50% of the time. I think it's worth looking into, investigating whether Busquets might be interested in having that kind of a season, that transition kind of season in that position. And that's funny because initially when I saw the starting lineup, I was disappointed. I felt that we were getting a more conservative, less offensive minded, more emphasis on defensive sacrifice. That's a long way to say a defensive system. From Xavi, obviously I wanted Ansu, and then I was hoping to get Ansu on the left, and that we would see Ansu, Lewandowski, and Dembele in the front three. And that was my impression in particular as well, after Xavi mentioned in the semifinals that he should have put Ansu in sooner. I was like, well, that for sure, that means he'll put them in from the start this time. But again, it just goes to show that I know fuck all, and I should keep my dumbass mouth shut and just let the experts do what they know how to do best.
You said something. Yeah, I agree with I guess I was under the impression that this is Busquets' last season, no matter what. But I don't know if that was 100% the case.
It's not 100%.
I think if you're a Barca fan, it would make sense if you have Busquets around, not as a starter, but just as an option. Kind of the way, like if Balde is the future left back, just having Alba around for whenever necessary, right? Kind of the same idea.
Right.
Do you see some of Barca of maybe 1-2 years ago in the current Real Madrid, in the sense that there are some older players who shouldn't be playing every single game? Like an over trust and over reliance in the older players, where getting in the way of the development of the young players?
Kiyan, for sure. That's what we've been talking and documenting here, I feel like, since 2015, since the last time Barca won a Champions League. I feel like there's just been this over-reliance and use by Valverde, by even Quique Setién, you could argue, and then Koeman, in the old guard, and playing them excessive amounts of minutes, just too much, like I said, over-reliance on these elderly players, for sure.
Because what I saw last night is like it's quite clear you guys won the midfield battle. It was there's the tactical domination, but there was also a physical domination. You know what I mean? Like fresh legs versus old legs kind of thing, kind of vibe. Yeah. That's also why I'm like, and I know I mentioned this to Lucas, like, I don't call out those older players as to scapegoat them, because Modric has given so much. If anyone's allowed to just not be good at the age of 36 for a few games, it's Modric. He's allowed to be bad sometimes, you know what I mean? And and Cruz, I will also give a pass to, because he was amazing last Clasico at the Bernabeu earlier this season, and he's also playing defensive midfielder, which is not his best position. But there needs to be some freshening up, and like if you want Modric to be amazing in the Champions League, if you want Carvajal to be amazing in the Champions League, these guys can't be playing every single game. They need rest. They need rest, and that.
But that's why you have Tchouameni, you have Camavinga. That's why you have those guys.
Well,
that's why you have a Rodrigo.
I mean, Tchouameni has trust, but he's injured, and he's still injured. So that he was obviously a big loss last night too. But
no, but I mean, like, I hear this argument, but my question to that, or my rebuttal, is Papa Flo is spending a hella cash on these youngsters.
Well,
So what, it's just a matter of being patient and as well just letting
patient and trust.
rotations
And trust
take place.
Like you said earlier in the podcast that, you guys won your first trophy yesterday, but you also lost a lot with Gavi and Pedri. I'm okay with losing with some of the young players. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? I'm okay with the growing pains that are associated with eventual triumph.
Right.
I'm accepting of that fact. I'm okay. I'm okay with going down with some of the younger players, down fighting, swinging with these younger players. If you lose, you lose. It's better than what we would have seen yesterday. That's for sure.
Enter moral victory.
We did not have moral victory yesterday.
No, of course not. But that's what I mean. Like these stepping stones, these milestones come through also moral victories and these kind of losses where you're like, okay, we lost, but it's not a humiliating loss. There's an improvement here. There's something in these youngsters. Let's keep going. Give it trust. Give the project some peace of mind, some tranquility, some time and patience, and keep building.
One more thing, the mindset, I think, of both teams. There was a lot of talk of like, oh, well, Real Madrid wins finals. That's what they do.
Yeah.
I felt like even in the body language in the first half, it was so casual from us, like too casual. You know what I mean? To the point where it's like, oh, we'll figure out a way. We win the finals. It was too casual. Not enough actually taking over the game. Even some of our passes, like even when we were making those mistakes, we were just so nonchalant with the ball. Like, you know what I mean? There was no panic, but I don't say that in a good way. There was
no urgency.
No urgency and way too chill on the ball. And this also points to the fact that right now Real Madrid are not in a good headspace at all. Leading up to this game and certainly not after this game.
The thing is, the World Cup is not an excuse. I mean, you're talking, if you're comparing with Barca, the team with the most amount of players participating in the World Cup, and look at the physical difference.
Yeah, that I agree with that. The thing with Barca too is, like they had so many players in the World Cup. But let's bring up an example. Well, no, that is the example. The Barca can use that same excuse too, and they didn't need to talk about that excuse because they're playing better. So
Well, let's see if this momentum keeps going, man. That's right now, that's it. Party's over. Congratulations to Oculés. Ceuta in the Copa is next on Thursday, then it's Getafe over the weekend. Thank you for making me aware of Madrid's upcoming schedule. I'm gonna look with a hella interest.
Pretty brutal.
Into
this is my only small little detail of hope I will grab on from this is if Barca have a hangover from this and Real Madrid have a wake up call and it goes in two different directions. That's my only hope that I'm praying for.
Yeah. So, which could happen.
Possible.
Well, are you that's it now, right? I mean, you have no more post Supercopa podcast to do.
This was the last
now
one.
It's just
I would like to write something. I didn't write anything about this game. I'd like to write something. I mean, I put out a Twitter. I was on the treadmill this morning at the gym, and I was feeling bad about not writing anything. So I put out a Twitter thread with some quick thoughts and a bunch of spelling mistakes. But I would like to write something if I have time later tonight, maybe, because if I wait till tomorrow, it's too late. But I might write something tonight. But yeah, I'm done with the pods.
Okay. Well, I hope it's going to be an ode to head coach Xavi Hernandez and just singing his praises. In which case, do tag me because I want to read it.
It won't happen.
And hey, quickly before we leave, over the weekend I binged because
on food,
my family, the wife and kids. Well, also, but on TV, the wife and kiddos are with my in-laws. They come back tomorrow. So I had tons of time and I binged. I just devoured a docuseries that is just recently released this month, a couple days ago, 13th, on Apple TV. Yeah. Highly recommended to all our dear listeners and you, Kiyan, as well, and everybody around me. It's called Super League: The War for Football. Watch it. I would like to discuss it with you. I liked it so much, I want to watch it again. I've recommended to some of my close friends there, started watching it. They're like, this is fucking awesome. Whether you pro or contra, you get something out of this. It outlines the occurrence. So it's the 4 days of when, it's really well done. It's the 4 days of when, the Jesus. 4 days of when the Super League was announced, okay, to the aftermath. So it has all the protagonists. And when I say all the protagonists, it means in the 4 episodes, it's 4 hours, 4 episodes of 1 hour, pretty much, 55 minutes each. You get to hear from Don Florentino Perez, Don Joan Laporta, the president of La Liga, Javier Tebas, of course, the president of UEFA, and Alexander Ceferin, Agnelli, their close relationship, the backstab. It watches like a mafia movie, and that is exactly what it is. It's fascinating. It is just fascinating to see what took place, the conversations, the backstabbing. Oh my God, Infantino gets into the mix. The only person we don't hear about that is not interviewed, but he submits a written statement, but he didn't want to be interviewed, and for good goddamn reason. No spoilers, but just watch it. The tons of all the owners, Al Khaifi, the owners from Manchester City, the CEO of the Premier League, or the owners of Liverpool, Man United, they're all in this, being drilled and interviewed, and it's just fascinating. It's fantastic. And I will say this as well, it's just only like made me believe my stance in that we need to create a Super League if we want our beloved Real Madrid and Football Club Barcelona to continue to exist and compete with all of these new money clubs. And the true Super League, which is the Premier League, and that is no longer a conspiracy theory. That is no longer an exaggeration or an overstatement. The Super League is the Premier League, because when it was founded in 1992, it was founded as a breakaway league from what was then called the Football League, created a completely new association as well, and it was called the Super Premier League. 1992. Watch it anyway. Like we'll leave it for another day, because I want you to have seen it as well, but it's well worth the watch.
That is actually, that part of it is actually true, because I'm reading this in Ryan O'Hanlon's new book now too. There's a section on the fact that the Premier League used to just be not the Premier League. It just used to be like every team in England, and then all of a sudden, like 20 teams were like, all right, screw this. Yes. We're just making our own league.
Screw this.
The best teams are going here, but you can be relegated and promoted to it. So that's how it's going to happen.
And the Super League is open.
The Super League is now has a closed league. Their format. Yeah, they want to include everyone, which is a good case. I didn't actually know about this documentary. I don't know if that's, I don't know how, because you just listed off like every important person in football, and I did not even know this documentary exists.
Yeah, I know. I came on it. I came by it out of coincidence, and it just started immediately, and it was just like a good book, you know. When from page one it just sucks you in and you can't let it go. It was like that. I finished it in dos días, 2 days, and the great thing is, of course, you get to hear right from the sources, right? You know, from the main protagonists. You also see that Laporta and Florentino they're best buds, basically. I mean, it's like the alliance between Real Madrid and Barca at this point. First of all, I don't think the relationship has ever been this good, and their common interest has never been so aligned to be like, we are in this together, because that's it. We're like the two last teams standing, with Juventus that obviously is going through their own problems now with the re-signing of Agnelli and him leaving the club after 99 years. 100 years. He completed the centenary.
My the best comparison I can think of between Florentino and Laporta is just me and you. I think it's the same vibes.
It's true. It's true. I'd imagine. Yeah.
I think there's like, we both want, we want our own teams to win, but there's also, there's like a common goal there too. And for sure, they're smoking cigars behind the scenes. No question. No question.
No question. You literally see them having lunch and chopping it up. It's very good. It's endearing images as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Congrats on
yesterday.
Alrighty. Well deserved.
Thank you, sir. Very humble in win, defeat, as always. Kiyan Sobhani and all you respectful Madridistas. Much appreciated. Love it. Let's go for más y mejor now. More and better. That's what we want.
Let's see where this goes. Very curious to see how the progression of both teams this season will be and what the future entails. But yeah, hope everyone enjoyed it. Diego, you and I will be back later this week for an episode over on patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas. That happens once a week exclusively over there. So go get in on that, listeners. And follow us on Twitter at Churros Tácticas without the Y. And that Twitter is going to blow up now because now Diego has figured out the algorithm. He's going to do Twitter Spaces, and it's just going to be memes and viral tweets. So do that.
I hope so. This was fun.
Thanks, Diego. Appreciate it. It was fun.
Thanks, dude.
Peace.
You too. Peace.